Hey, welcome. I hope you're doing well today. We've got some really important stuff to talk about here. It's really been coming up a lot over the last few weeks, and it makes sense, right? It's been a bit of a stressful time for a lot of people. Um, but it has been coming up, and I'm seeing connections between stress and the pelvic health symptoms that a lot of you are experiencing. So, today is really an important conversation, important training. Um, and if you do have questions, please pop them in the chat. I will answer them when we wrap up this part of the training and move into our group Q&A. But yeah, stress. And the reason why I want to talk about stress, especially, is because it's sneaky. It's sneaky. And a lot of the times we don't even realize we're stressed until, we want to turn our heads a little bit, or even we feel a little bit more symptomy than usual. Right. And then it's like, oh, maybe I do have some stuff that's going on that I need to rethink or that I need to organize or whatever it is. Right. So when I say, when we're using your symptoms as feedback, I'm also looking at how stressed you are, whether you're sleeping, what's going on in your life, if you're going through a transition, maybe you're going back to work after being on maternity for a little while, right? You know, Life brings us stuff that is sometimes hard, that needs our attention more than other things, right? So, what I'm going to do is we're going to go through what to look for in terms of stress, how to navigate that through your workouts and in your life, as well as we're going to talk a little bit more about the science behind stress and why it affects us the way that it does. Now, there's acute stress. So that's the stress that kind of comes up from time to time. And then there's the chronic stress. So we're going to touch on both, right? But it's really important that we do take the time to take care of ourselves really and manage our stress, because that's going to fall into how or what results we're going to get when we're doing any kind of fitness program, whether it's, a weight loss program, you want to improve performance, you are in general just looking to manage your pelvic health, right? So stress is a big component of that. It's not as sexy as what you might see on social media, but I do try to talk about it there, which is bringing me here today. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot more of this coming up, so it's really an important topic to talk about. Really, it's really important to talk about and have some tools in how to navigate it, just like we have those tools to navigate our prolapse on and off the gym floor. All right, so we're going to talk about the stress and tension. So this is like the physical and physiological tension, right? I just mentioned a second ago, you don't realize you're stressed until, you look over your shoulder and you're like, "Oh, I've got a little bit of tightness there." Or maybe you're a little bit more symptomy than normal. That could very well be tension. Stress creates tension in the body. We hold ourselves like this, right? Well, what happens there is that your pelvic floor is also experiencing that tension, and it's probably just as tense as the muscles in your upper back or up in your neck and shoulder area where you're looking to get a good rub on, right? So, your pelvic floor definitely responds to stress, and it responds to the physical and physiological stress. It responds for some people, they feel it more when they're chronically stressed. So, this is an extended period, or they might feel it from time to time, just, when things are a little bit more hectic than normal. So stress is absolutely a part of our pelvic health and navigating our recovery, even with our workouts, right? If we're stressed, our workouts may not feel like workouts. You may feel like you did way more 2 weeks ago than you're doing today. That's a good indication that maybe we need to think about what we need to do in your training so that we can complement stress reduction, right? We can complement that self care or that relaxation. And then we're going to talk about taking back control. But really, stress comes with tension, tension comes from stress. So if you notice yourself going like, I've got a little stuff going on here, or you're a lot more symptomy than normal, take stock of what is going on around you and how you're feeling emotionally and mentally, because that can give you some really good insight on your next steps. Okay, so stress on your body. Again, stress can cause inflammation. And what researchers are seeing now, and what doctors are seeing now, is that there's a pretty clear physiologic, or sorry, it seems like chronic physiological stress, right? So some of those symptoms you might notice that you're not sleeping well at night, you're more irritable than normal, maybe you don't have an appetite, or you've lost your libido. Um, your heart is always beating rapidly, right? Like those are physiological responses to stress. And it can affect the body's ability to regulate the inflammatory response, because one of the body's key stress hormones is cortisol, right? So when cortisol is elevated because we're stressed, inflammation may creep in as well. And again, that's why you might feel a little achy up here or a little down there, right? Um, if you're chronically stressed and you're chronically symptomatic, we may need to take a look at that and do a deep dive in there to see what we can do to manage that stress so that those symptoms start to feel better over time. Right. This is stuff that, we don't going to a pelvic floor physiotherapist, they're great for the internal, the coaching stuff and the outside stuff like stress management. They will tell you that this is what needs to take place, but not always walk you through it or coach you through it. So if stress is one of your big triggers and you're working with your pelvic PT, make sure that you bring that up too. Okay. So stress and exercise, this is going to be a biggie, because this applies to what the work that we're doing together, right? You come to me because you want a workout program that will help you navigate your symptoms, your prolapse on and off the gym floor. We need to find a balance with, your current life, the stresses that are within your life, whatever is going on in your life now. And again, we need to find a balance with exercise, because what happens is when we're in a chronically stressed state, right? So this is an extended period of stress where when we're in that state, going to do a HIIT workout or beating the crap out of yourself at a boot camp can exacerbate these physiological responses as well as making you symptomy. This is because your central nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, I tried to say that a little quickly, it didn't come out right, um, become maxed. They become maxed. They become overloaded, right? Throwing intensive exercise on top of that adds to the stress. So if you're finding that you're in a stressful period, then we need to navigate that, right? Or you need to navigate that and say, hey, you know what? I'm not sleeping so well tonight. I'm stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed, maybe a mobility type workout or a low impact strength training workout is what I need for now. Because believe it or not, in working with a lot of new moms or women who have recently given birth, who want to get that part of their life back, that active part of their life back, and a lot of that does include losing the baby weight, which is I'm happy to support, right? But what I know is when you're with a new baby, or I mean, first we need to think about the pelvic floor rehab stuff, right? You got to recover. You need that recovery. After a workout, you need that recovery. But what I'm seeing is that a lot of moms want to rush back into that intensive exercise piece where, we're looking the stress in a normal new mom's life, waking up 24/7, well, feeling like you're awake 24/7 because you're now caring for a child, right? You're still waking up in the middle of the night. There's a lot of transition happening, a lot of changes happening, relationship changes, life changes, all of that stuff, right? That's stressful. That's a lot of work. And if your goal is to manage your pelvic health, then that's where we need to go first, right? If your symptoms are bothering you, you're not liking them, then that's what we need to take care of. And if you're piling more stress on yourself, like with high impact, high intensity hit kind of workouts, you might have an opposite effect. So during stressful periods, you know, whether even if you're, you know, even navigating prolapse during workouts, that can be stressful, right? And that's why a lot of the workouts start off fairly low impact so that you can build that confidence, so that you can learn how to navigate those symptoms and allow that stress just to kind of disappear as you become or as your body adapts, right? If I was to throw you in like a high impact hit workout right away and be like, okay, manage your symptoms, first, it'd be really hard for you to manage those symptoms because you might not know how. You'd feel defeated because a really hard workout, you might not be conditioned for it. And then you've got your symptoms on top of that, right? And even just feeling symptoms alone is stressful for a lot of women and puts a lot of fear into them. So we need to find a balance. So this is why I like the custom work because, what works for one person isn't going to work for another. And again, it's just a matter of looking at what's going on in your environment, in your life, and going, what is this about? Right? So don't just jump to that conclusion that it's your pelvic floor. It could be a physiological response to your stress. So some things to look out for. So that this is going to tie a lot in with, like workout recovery as well. So you're going to see common a lot of common things throughout this training. And through maybe some of your other trainings that you've done with me, if you've done any with me. But your symptoms, when I'm assessing symptoms, I'm also looking at recovery. So your workout recovery. And that's where, give yourself 24 hours in between because if you do too much, that's a lot on the central nervous system, right? So some things to look for. And again, it looks a lot like overtraining. So this is where you're kind of have to play a little detective work to figure out if you're overtraining or if it's stress. But really, the treatment is the same, right? So some things to look for, you're more symptomy than normal, or if you're generally asymptomatic and then symptoms creep out of nowhere, you might be stressed or kind of going into that overtraining feeling, right? But typically it happens with stressful periods. So extra symptomy. Some things like sleep disruptions and mood. So if you're extra symptomy, you're extra grumpy, you're not sleeping well, take a minute and think about why that's happening and what you can do to manage that and maybe get to sleep a little bit earlier, go for a walk, doing enjoyable things so that you are in a good mental space so that you can fall asleep easier at night, right? And another thing to look for is lack of progress. So, again, this can be physical or physiological. Now, depending on your goals, this might look a little bit different, but if prolapse management during your workouts is your goal and you're not seeing any progress there, what's happening? Why is that happening? Is stress contributing to that? Or do we need to maybe think about a pessary or something like that? For a lot of people who are looking to, lose some weight or some fat or improve performance, build muscle, again, they're noticing that they're hitting that plateau. So again, when you find yourself here and you're just like, you know what, like I don't feel like I've made any progress over the last few weeks, take a look at what's going on and, think to yourself, ask yourself, how are you feeling? Right? If you're overwhelmed and stressed, then yeah, you might not see progress until things ease up for you. And again, that's okay. This stuff is all okay. It's all very normal and common. So please don't beat yourself up if you suddenly feel symptoms from out of nowhere or you're feeling them more so than usual. Because again, with prolapse and the physiological hormonal responses that are going on during these times, it's to be expected that we don't feel 100%, right? We might not even feel at 70 or 50%. So again, when you run into these things and you're noticing them and you're feeling extra stressed, we can adjust your workouts accordingly. Okay. Just until you get past this hiccup, and then we can get moving again and then start building that process up again. So this doesn't mean give up. When you're feeling these things, it doesn't mean that you need to give up on your goals. It's just we need to change the action steps until we work through what's happening. Okay? How you doing there? Okay, I'm just gonna grab a sip of water. Okay, so here are some physical things that you may notice in times of stress. So clenching your jaw, maybe I'll come up a little and you're like, and you're biting down hard on your jaw. What's really interesting about your jaw is that it's connected to your pelvic floor. And if you are always clenching here, chances are you might have some hypertonicity or carrying some tension within the pelvic floor. So sometimes even just right? And a really cool breathing trick that I learned from my daughter's occupational therapist was if you're feeling anxious when you're breathing, you know how we do our inhale, exhale? She said, inhale and then open your mouth, right? Because that will loosen up here. Well, I kind of connected that too, but that breathing trick my daughter's occupational therapist, Fatima, shared with me, and I thought it was really cool to share with you. So watch out that you're clenching your jaw. Another clue to look for is pain or uncomfortable sex. Again, when we're stressed and we're carrying a lot of tension, we feel that in our pelvic floor, right? Or a lot of women, not everyone. But if this is you, if you're carrying a lot of tension in your pelvic floor, you may notice that you're not comfortable with intercourse. And this could be with insertion or penetration, and even orgasm, right? So something to look at if you're feeling overloaded. And another one is trouble going pee and poo. Again, your pelvic floor muscles respond to stress. And if you're overly stressed and those muscles are tense, you might have a harder time going to the bathroom. So in this case, getting a squatty potty or just some sort of stool to place your feet up on while you go. Um, and then again, this isn't to say to give up on having sex, not at all, but just taking a step back, assessing why you're stressed, what's going on with you, what you need to work on, and then adding in some relaxation strategies so that you feel better a lot sooner and that you build that resilience, because that's a big thing with stress, is that we're building resilience. And I hope that's a big lesson that you take away from today, because we can't avoid stress. We just can't. It would be nice to live a stress-free life, but it's just not possible for most of us. So what we have to do is we have to learn how to manage it and build that resilience so the fallout doesn't suck. All right. Okay. So now we're going to talk about how to adapt your workouts. And the reason why this is really important is because I'm not physically with you. So I can't tell you what you need to do and how to do it. You need to be able to self-assess and have these skills so that you understand how your body works and how to adapt your training. I can write your programs, and this is why I kind of leave how much weight you use and the intensity up to you, because you're not going to be feeling the same from workout to workout, right? Last week could be really good, but this week might be a really hard week. You might have a lot going on. You might be a little bit more stressed than normal, what have you. So you need to be able to make these judgment calls for yourself as well. So how to adapt your workout. So first, we want to think about scaling back on the intensity. So if you're doing like a high impact workout, slow down the pace a little bit. You don't have to have a huffy puffy workout to have a good workout. Um, if you're lifting weights, maybe reduce the load a little bit. Maybe, scale back from 20 pounds to 15 or maybe 10. Maybe just body weight workouts, and seeing how that feels. Um, Focusing more on relaxation in your cool down. Again, super important. So if you are finding that you're in kind of like the stressful time, you do a workout, make sure you spend a little extra time post workout doing some hip opening work, right? So you can lay down on the floor and put your feet up on the couch and just focus on relaxing and opening your pelvic floor. So that's where you inhale through your mouth or inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And instead of the Kegel, this is where you imagine your pelvic floor or your vagina opening even more with every exhale. Okay, so no Kegel. They call it a reverse Kegel, but you're just going to imagine yourself exhaling without Kegling. Instead, you're going to imagine your vagina opening more and more with the exhale. And then prioritize recovery, sleep, and self-care. Again, if you want really good results, if your goal is a performance goal, a weight loss goal, and in general, for our own mental health, we need to prioritize sleep and self-care. So this is going to look a little bit different for everybody. But in terms of, your training, your workouts, you may need an extra day of a break from strength training. And maybe, on your days off, you just go for a walk or do some active recovery instead. If you have a spin bike, I know a lot of people seem to be getting those Peloton bikes, which look awesome. Doing a light ride on your bike can be super helpful too. But we want to prioritize that recovery piece as much as possible. Prioritizing sleep, another biggie for recovery. If you're finding that you're having a string of rough nights, my suggestion to you is reassessing your bedtime routine. Are you getting enough wind down time during the day? Now, I know it can be tricky, scheduling a full hour or anything like that for yourself, and you don't have to go that far. All you need to do is just take 10 minutes to yourself. Read a book. It doesn't have to be a lot, just something enough that's going to recharge you and put that pep back into your step. But when we prioritize recovery, sleep, and self-care, our pelvic floor feels that too. We don't carry that tension. Our hormones are fairly evened out. They're doing what they need to do. And again, you can also do this when you notice that you're a little bit more symptomy or a lot more symptomy and just not feeling comfortable. So these are ways that we would troubleshoot your symptoms as a lot of people feel like they just should push through it. And to a certain degree, yeah, action does beat anxiety. However, if you are stressed to the point where your body is not comfortable, you don't feel well, you don't feel rested, you're exhausted, you're sore all the time, don't push through it. When you try, it keeps these stress hormones elevated, right? So that's when we just really want to take a step back instead of pushing through. There's no badge of honor in taking a break, in resting for a day or so, or for doing a light, you know, the badge of honor really is that you're feeling well. So pushing through, use your judgment call, but again, this is where you're prioritizing your sleep, self care, and recovery. And when these stress hormones are elevated, let me tell you, it's harder to sleep, it's harder to recover. So if you just keep pushing through that, it can take a lot longer to get through that stressful period. All right. So here are some breathing tips that you can use to help calm yourself when you're in a moment of stress. So there's belly breathing. So that's similar to the diaphragmatic breathing with the Kegel that um, we've been doing in our training or that my clients do in their work with me in the Kegel. And what you want to think about is that you are breathing. And when you're breathing, you're expanding your belly outward, right? That air is expanding your belly, expanding your ribs. You're breathing into your pelvic floor and getting some nice expansion there. And then when you exhale again, just that's it through your mouth. You can do the if you want to see how that feels for you. Um, but that's a really good one to start with. Box breathing is a little bit more challenging. It's the same as belly breathing, but the difference is that you're counting um, to 7 on the inhale. You're holding your breath for 7, and then you're exhaling for 7. 7 or 4. I'm going to have to double check because for some reason that just escaped me. But this can be harder for people, especially for people that are really anxious. So the belly breathing is a good one to start with. The box breathing, as well as the energetic breathing, is better to practice when you're not stressed. So it's better to learn when you're not stressed. And then the energetic breathing is really cool, and we haven't covered this one yet. And I haven't even really talked about it with my clients because this one is a new one to me that I'm learning. But you take your big deep breath in, out, and then you can add in some shorter breaths with some shorter exhales. and then let all of that air out. So again, box breathing and energetic breathing are best to get practice with before you're stressed. Trying to teach yourself this while you're stressed or trying to do this when you're stressed is a lot more overwhelming. But belly breathing is generally okay, because the only difference is that we're just not adding a Kegel. We've been doing it all along. We're just not adding a Kegel. So, a healthy body is a resilient body, and this is what we're trying to build physically, but we also need to build this mentally as well. Um, because when you are in a healthy state, yeah, you're going to get stressed, you're going to have those periods, but you're going to come out of it a lot better. So, it's going to better prepare you to ward off the negative effects of stress. Okay, so taking care of your body. When you are stressed, okay, these are great things to do when you're in this period of stress. Do your breathing, go out for a walk, get some fresh air. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to do a 10,000 step walk. If you just go out for a few minutes, especially what month is this? February. Especially in February, we've just been hit with crazy, crazy, crazy snow. Getting out for a walk, big walk, might not be possible. A few minutes just to step outside, even, and just breathe in some fresh air can be really helpful. Avoid alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. I don't think I have to get too much into this. Get moving, okay? When you're stressed, please, please, please don't pack yourself up on a couch um, and wait for it to pass. Get moving. Again, probably not gonna, do kick you in the ass kind of workouts, so that you're falling on the floor, but something that's complementary and more restorative so that we can help you recover and get through that stressful period much sooner than we would if you pushed through or just hung out and hid under your bed, right? Prioritize sleep, eat reasonably well. This can be tough to do, but do your best. If for me, when I'm in these times, that's when I just kind of pick up the supplements a little bit more. So, some extra greens, fish oil, magnesium, vitamin D, um, because trying giving your body what it needs during these stressful times is also going to help with that physiological stress that you're experiencing. Again, just do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect. Even if you're eating one healthy meal a day and the rest of it is questionable, you're doing your best. As things start improving, then you can take steps forward again in getting back into a more your usual routine. And then unplug. Just unplug. I stopped following a lot of people on social media because I was finding that I was just getting overwhelmed and with all the opinions and the advice and it wasn't like I was reading anything that was, considered toxic, but I was just overloaded just on information. And I started unfollowing a lot of people on social media, really taking stock of kind of what I was watching and instead of food putting into my body, what shows I was watching, what I was absorbing, right? So I took stock of that. That was really helpful. Unplugging even an hour before bedtime can improve sleep. So if you can at least unplug an hour before you go to sleep every single night, you will even notice a big difference there. Now, here's some of the mental training that we're going to talk about. So, in calming your mind, when when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling this stress, ask yourself why. Just start with why. Why are you so stressed? What is going on? If you need to write it down just to bring it to your consciousness, that in that's my secret tip right there. Acknowledging, acknowledging the stress or the anxiety or the emotions that you're feeling, good and bad, really. I shouldn't say feelings in are bad, but that aren't so pleasant, maybe. Change my language there. Um, but really, when you're feeling this stuff and you bring it to your consciousness, you can deal with it, right? But when it's buried in your subconsciousness and you're not exactly aware of why you're stressed, then you might sit there for a little while until you figure out what is bringing the stuff on. So acknowledge the stress or anxiety, right? So I live with anxiety. I also live with depression. And when I'm feeling those things, I say, "Oh, hi, anxiety. How are you doing today?" Have my prolapse symptoms. I call that prolapse penny. Oh, there's prolapse penny. So even giving it a cute name or something like that, just there you are. Because when you bring it into the consciousness, it's so much easier for you to manage and cope with those feelings because you know why they're there. When you don't know why, it's just a lot harder. Organize your time. Um, This takes a little bit of practice, but planning your day the night before can be huge in navigating stress during the day. It'll also help you start your day with a win because you're not already so far behind and running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to get boots on your kids, finding a sock, and all that other fun stuff that happens in the morning. If you plan your day the night before, getting a few things ready before you go to bed can help in navigating starting your day off with stress. Because when we start our days off stress, we typically end those days in stress. So yeah, just making a plan. And even if you're going through a busy time, you can do that as well. And then, lastly, soothe your spirit. This takes practice. Navigating prolapse takes practice, but also navigating stress takes practice, right? Um, Excuse me. So create a positive practice. So this could be your 10 minutes of self-care every single day. Um, this could be reading a chapter of a book, every other day, however you want to set it up. Some people like meditating first thing in the morning, some will do it before bed, but bringing that positive energy in can help you cope massively through stress. Make time for fun. When was the last time you had fun? Honestly, we've kind of in and out of lockdown. I understand that fun might be a little bit hard to do out of the house, but what can you do inside the house that is fun? Hang out with loved ones, right? Hang out with friends if possible. You may need to do it on Zoom or something like that, but making time to laugh with people that you enjoy hanging out with is huge. And then tune out. So, like I said before, unplug, tune out, kind of focus on what is in front of you and unplugging everything else. All right. So I really do, I hope that gave you a better insight into how to manage stress, how to navigate stress, and even how it works within your prolapse. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I am looking. Okay. Is the chat coming up? Okay. They've been doing some updates with this. So some of the features are not working the way that they did just last week. So I'm unable to see questions. So if you do have any questions, please feel free just to send me an email or reach out to me and I'll answer them that way. I apologize for that. But thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad you stopped by. Again, really important stuff that we just don't talk enough about, or we talk about it, but not in a way to help understand what's happening, I guess, and then how to navigate the stress. So we don't always talk about what's happening on the inside out, but it is important to understand what's happening within your body and physiologically and physically. So yeah, there you go. Take care. Have a great day. And if you have any suggestions or if there's anything that you want to learn about in these group coaching sessions, can you do me a favor and just reach out? I'm kind of, I pick things that I see that are common, that I see a lot happening with, but I'm just kind of guessing here. So if there's a subject that you want covered, please let me know. All right. Take care. Have a happy day. Bye.